Welcome to Mind Yourself, a podcast sharing real life stories from real people, alongside conversations about mental health and emotional well-being. Listener discretion is advised, as this episode may include themes some listeners may find distressing. Wherever you're joining us from, whether you're walking, driving, or taking a quiet moment for yourself, you're very welcome here. Let's get started.
We're here today on the Four Swans Mind Yourself podcast with Aileen White. Aileen is a breast cancer survivor. Aileen, for any woman to receive a breast cancer diagnosis is the most incredibly devastating thing you can imagine. For you, it was back in 2018, 5 weeks before you were getting married, and with two very small children who were 3 and 5 at the time. What was it like for you to receive that diagnosis?
It was really tough. Like, you know, most people, I was just getting ready for the wedding, trying to get myself fit and healthy and, you know, organised. And I literally just found a lump one day in the shower. Went to the GP the next day, and she just was a little bit unsure about it, so she sent me for a mammogram. So the mammogram probably took place about a week or so later, and the mammogram, you know, they weren't happy with the results of the mammogram, so they then sent me on for a biopsy. And again, a week or so after that, then I suppose I just got the news that I had got breast cancer. Now my consultant was very, I suppose, positive about it, in that we had caught it very early, and we went into, I suppose, what the treatment plan should be for the tests needed to be done, MRIs and so on. So once we got through all of that, and I knew what the treatment plan was, you know, I felt a little bit better. The waiting around is really, really difficult. You know, that's probably the most difficult part of any diagnosis, is waiting, the unknown. Your mind can go into, you know, dark places. And on top of all of that, like I was getting married in a couple of weeks' time. So I was trying to really focus on whether we could go ahead with the wedding, and, you know, still look forward to enjoying the wedding. We'd been planning for 2 years, you know, so it's part of it. But look, the diagnosis, as I said, it's a very, very tough thing to take.
So you had your wedding in just before you started your treatment, is that right?
Yeah, so basically I was diagnosed in late March, and I had a lumpectomy to remove the tumour on the 17th of April, and then we got married on the 19th of May. So I had the lumpectomy, got a couple of weeks to recover, went away, and we got married, and then I started my treatment when I came back from Spain, from the wedding. Yeah.
So after the lumpectomy, your treatment was chemotherapy and radiotherapy.
Yeah.
For anybody who hasn't experienced cancer treatment, what was the chemo and the radiotherapy like?
Yeah, chemo is tough, as I suppose most people would know. I done 2 separate types of chemotherapy. So I had 4 rounds of, I suppose the abbreviation is AC, and then I had 12 weeks of Taxol. So for AC itself, it's very, very harsh. It depletes the white cells very, very rapidly. And after my 3rd round of AC, I contracted meningitis. So that was quite serious. I was in hospital for a number of weeks. I suppose that was a time where I was very unsure if I was going to survive. It was a very, very difficult period. So after that, thankfully, I did get through it, and I didn't do any more AC. So I stopped at 3. I didn't get the 4th one. And then I went into Taxol, which is weekly. And whilst it's cumulative and it builds up and it can be very harsh, it definitely wasn't as harsh as the AC. But there was lots of little side effects after every treatment, you know. So whether that be blisters in your mouth or painful, like muscle pain, there was always something. But equally, in terms of a medical, there was always something that you could take to help, to aid with whatever the side effect was. So yeah, so it's very, very difficult, you know, the chemotherapy. Obviously, you lose your hair. They had told me in the hospital, like, you know, really day 17 is when you lose your hair. And, you know, obviously thinking it's not going to happen to me. I was like, God, it's day 17 and it hasn't happened. And, you know, lo and behold, it was very, very much within that time frame. And, you know, you start seeing clumps of hair on your bedding and in the shower. And, you know, I got to the stage I couldn't put my hair up in a pony. So I just made the personal decision just to to shave my head, you know. So I suppose prior to that, I had looked into wigs, and you know the recommendation is you go before you lose your hair, and they try and match and all of the rest of it. So so I just kind of got the head shaved, and that was kind of it. So that was pretty much said after my second round of chemotherapy, like the hair. So that's the most noticeable thing with chemotherapy. And then as time goes on, obviously you lose your, you know, eyebrows and your eyelashes. So for me personally, you know, obviously losing the hair was devastating, but it was when I lost my eyelashes and my eyebrows, I looked sick then. I couldn't hide it anymore with, like, you know, nice scarves or, you know, wigs or head scarves or anything like that. So when you lose your eyelashes and your eyebrows, you look sick, you know. So that was a difficult time because there was no hiding the illness then, like, you know. So so yeah, it's extremely tough. It's tough.
Aileen, can I just ask, what is the emotional impact of all of this?
Like it's difficult to put into words, to be honest with you. Like, you're, as the person who has been diagnosed, once I got my treatment plan, I was just in survival mode. I had chemo every Friday, so I was like, get to Friday, get your chemo. The weekend was pretty much a write-off, couldn't do much. And then before you know it, you're into the next week. My children were still going to school and preschool, getting them up, going out the door to school. And then you go to before you know it, it's Friday again. So your mind is just constantly waiting for the next appointment, and you're just looking to get to the end date. So for me, it was just pure survival mode. However, you know, as I said, for every side effect with chemo, there's some medical tablet you can take, or if you're in pain and whatever. The emotional side of it, the mental side of it is much more difficult to deal with, and nobody really supports you in that, in terms of the medical professionals. So I contacted the Gary Kelly Centre, which is the local cancer support centre to me, and I made an appointment. I first met with the nurse. We went through my treatment plan. She assured me that it was the gold star of treatment plans and it was really good. They offered lots of services such as counselling, and they have a host of services up there: reflexology, massage therapy, as well as like even like makeup courses. How do you do your eyebrow? You know, when you lose your eyebrows, there was like yoga and stuff. So for me personally, as I said, I had chemo every Friday, and I used to go to the Gary Kelly Centre then twice during the week, because it's important to try and have a bit of a routine. Because as I said, the children were in school, my husband was in work, all my friends were in work, so you can be on your own a lot, you know. So going up to the Gary Kelly Centre, I would do a little gentle yoga, and then after we'd have like a cup of tea and a cake and chat to the other men and women. And it was great to have people who knew what I was going through. So as much as your friends and family are supportive to you, they don't know what you are feeling. So having other people to talk about, saying, I'm experiencing this side effect, and they're like, yeah, that's normal. And they also guide you on entitlements, and, you know, you should be applying for this, or you should be doing this, and, you know, so I think support centres around the country, you know, really are very important. And for me personally, it would be the first thing I'd recommend to anybody who's been diagnosed.
It's really nice to hear you say that there is so much support out there. Mm-hmm. Are there some people who are reluctant for some reason to go and get that support?
I think sometimes support centres, whether it be the Gary Kelly or ARC in Dublin, can be seen as a little bit of a clinical setting. So people don't necessarily want to go and maybe be around people that are sick. But for me, that wasn't the case. It was very, very warm, no matter what time of the day, whether I was going in for a class or going in for, you know, advice. They were always there, very welcoming, very warm. So look, I would highly recommend it. Like, and there's fun stuff as well. Like, you know, at Christmas they might do like a wreath making course. So, or as I said, they makeup courses and stuff. So it's not all dreary. There's a lot of love in the centres, like, you know, and you get a lot of comfort in knowing that other people are going through similar situations and that they've come out the other side as well.
Aileen, you mentioned there that you spent a lot of time in survival mode.
Mm-hmm.
So one minute you're planning a wedding, you've got 2 little kids, life is good.
Yeah.
The next you get the shock of your diagnosis, and then all of a sudden you're in this world of weekly appointments and seeing various different medical professionals.
Yeah.
And you're getting through with this kind of finish line in sight,
Yes.
that you just want your treatment to be over so you can get back to normal.
Yeah.
What's it like when you get to the end of your treatment? I think there's a misconception that people think that that's it, it's finished, it's over, you can move on, it's in the past, get back to normal. It's not like that at all, sure, it's not.
No. And as I was going through my treatment, like, people say, oh, this is the new normal. And I liked my old normal. Like, I didn't want to change from my old normal. So the new normal was kind of going through your treatment plan and dealing with things as when they happened. But definitely when you finish, and I you see it on programs and people ring the bell and it's all lovely and everything. But when you're in treatment and you're seeing your consultant or your oncologist kind of weekly, when that stops and you finish, particularly when you finish chemotherapy, if you have something wrong then with you, or you feel a niggle or something doesn't feel right, you've nobody to call.
Your safety net is gone, and it's
your
very vulnerable.
Yeah, exactly. You're very, very vulnerable, and that is a difficult space to be in. So as the person that's going through the cancer, my personal experience is, like I said, I'm in survival mode. I'm going from week to week to week to week. So I didn't process what was going on. Whereas my husband, my friends, my family were processing all along. So when I got to the end, and certainly when people see that your hair is growing back, they're like, oh, you're better, you're grand now, and it's just not the case. Like, that's when I suppose nearly the post-traumatic stress kicks in, and you're like, oh my God, I was extremely ill, particularly for me with the meningitis as well. I was like, I nearly didn't survive that. And, it was a very difficult time to understand your mindset then. So the body will always look after itself, but the mind is more tricky, so we have to. And I did do a series of counselling privately and through the Gary Kelly Centre as well.
And when you finished your chemo and your radio, then you were prescribed tamoxifen.
Yes.
Which is very widely prescribed for women with certain types of cancer. What was that like?
So tamoxifen, so the type of cancer I had was estrogen-driven cancer. So it wasn't hereditary or anything like that. It was just the luck of the draw that I got it. So because it was estrogen-driven, I needed tamoxifen to suppress my estrogen. So I was prescribed that, and like that, I was advised, you go on this for 5 years. In my case, it was 5 years, and it will reduce the chance of reoccurrence. So, for me, it was a no-brainer. I had to go on this drug, but it is a very, very difficult drug to be on. Like, it suppresses all your estrogen, so your hormone levels, your moods. It's you can be very, very low. So personally, it took me, I think, about 2 years to really adjust to the tablet. You have to take it daily, and it took me about 2 years to adjust. And then after a period of time, obviously, I did adjust, but I would say that I probably will never be the person that I was, because the tablet does a lot to you, and it changes you. It really, really does, and it's a tough drug to be on. Yeah.
Yeah, there's something that hadn't really occurred to me, but it is a consideration. It's the financial considerations of getting a diagnosis of cancer. And Aileen, you're a big advocate for people with a diagnosis getting a medical card. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I suppose when I was first diagnosed, like that in the oncology ward, the nurse told me, we should apply for a medical card and all of the rest of it. So I did, and unfortunately it came back and it was rejected. So eligibility for the medical card is based on financial means. I was fortunate enough that when I was out of work, I was being paid by my job. However, to me personally, a medical card, it says it in the name, it's a medical card. So it doesn't make sense that it's granted to people on a financial means. It should be on your medical needs. So I had a medical need to have that card. After chemotherapy, this post-chemo drugs, they're expensive, You also, having a medical card allows you funds towards a wig, which is, a lot of women need and want it. So it really, really does make a difference having the medical card. So for me, somebody who has been given the devastating diagnosis that is cancer should be granted the medical card for a period of time, whether that's a period of 12 months for your treatment, or whatever the treatment is. Like, going through paperwork, filling in reams of paperwork, like to see if you're eligible or not. Like, it's tough going when you have a lot going on, so yeah, I'd be a big I suppose supportive that people with a medical need should be granted a medical card, you know. So, like, there is loads of other expense. Like, you're up and down. I was going to hospitals in Dublin. Like, you're up and down to Dublin all the time in the car for various different appointments. So you've got the financial burden of petrol or diesel costs. Parking also, you know, in hospitals is a huge expense. When I was in hospital for a period of time, like, friends and family were coming up and parking for them, you know, and like, whilst I was paid for a period of time, I wasn't paid for the whole time I was off. So financially, I still had a mortgage to pay. My children were still in creche. I was trying to keep life normal for them with their activities and everything. So you still are trying to like work through your normal life, like, you know. So it is a huge financial stress being sick.
There can also be an impact on the partners as well, can't there? You know, maybe they have to give up work for a while or take on more responsibility for the children, for the house, for day-to-day routines.
That's it, like, you know. And I had said to my husband, his job was to keep things normal for the kids. And I was extremely lucky when I got my chemotherapy schedule. I literally put it into my friendship group, and they were like, okay, I'll take this day, I'll take that. And they all came to the hospital with me like every week. There was somebody with me to allow my husband to work and keep the house going as normal. And they came, and it was, because you're about 3 hours, maybe more, like in the hospital, that they came, and, you know, they made it like it was nice. Then you're having a chat with your friend as well as obviously being getting chemotherapy. So it is it's huge. Like, people's lives have to change, you know, to a degree as well.
And there may be people listening here today who may have recently got a cancer diagnosis. What advice would you give them, or what things do you wish that you had known when you first got your diagnosis?
I suppose, like, my personal advice is the likes of support centres, so wherever they are. And I know, as I said, that the perception is maybe they're clinical settings, but from my experience, they're not. They're warm, they're friendly, and full of advice. There is so many things that you're entitled to that you're unaware of. If you don't want to go to a support centre, the likes of picking up the phone to the Irish Cancer Society are brilliant. They offer the likes of lifts to chemotherapy, you know, financial advice. There's a rake of support, like night nurses if you needed that. So just, I suppose, use the support services around you. Have faith in your medical team. You know, I had a plan, and I was grateful for that plan. And I thought, okay, that's me. I'm going to be finished in November. And not all the plans go to plan, but there's always a plan B, a plan C. So just have faith in your team, and in your ability to push through. Like, you know, you have to back yourself as well. Like, you know, have faith in yourself, and allow yourself times to have crappy days as well. You know, I went through a series where everyone's like, you have to be positive, you know, and I was like, yeah, I know, but I have cancer, you don't. So allow yourself them days that you want to be in bed and you want to just cry your heart out because you have young children at home and because your world has changed. So don't be too hard on yourself either, because you have to have, you know, whilst you have to remain, you know, positive about the outcome, you're also the one going through a very, very tough time.
Has it changed the way you see the world, Aileen? Has it changed your outlook or perspective?
I'd say yes and no. I suppose from the perspective that life is precious and it's short, and, you know, getting old is not guaranteed. You know, it really, really isn't. And, you know, as we came up to me and my friendship group, you know, you might come up to your 40s or your 50s and you're like, oh, Jesus. I'm like, don't. Not everybody grows old. It really, really is a privilege. Like, so just enjoy that. But, you know, the other side of it is life does get back to normal. Like, my bills were still there. My mortgage still had to be paid. I had to, and I wanted to get back to work as well. And the little stresses of life kind of come in again. But I would say is that, you know, when you have your health, you've got 100 problems, like the car broke down or the heating broke or something like that. But when you don't have your health, you've just got one problem. So like these problems, like the cars or anything, they're challenges. They're little obstacles in your way. They're stuff that is a nuisance. But like, once you have your health, you know, everything else is fine. Yeah.
So the little things that you would have taken for granted before.
Yeah, like, I think you just have to find joy and happiness in small things. Like, you know, as people now, I think, like, we're always looking for the next best thing and bigger and better. But, you know, sometimes there's nothing as nice as sitting home on a Saturday night with your family watching a movie, or, you know, if you do get out to go to the beach for a walk, and and just enjoy the small things. Like, I think for me, I love being outside and I love being outdoors. I get really energy from being around people, like, so just take the joy in whatever you enjoy as a person, like, so there's nothing set in stone. There's no saying like, oh, exercise worked for me but it mightn't work for you. So it's just find something that you find joy in.
And what does work for you, Aileen? How do you mind yourself?
Well, as exercise is a big part of my life. Like, after being sick, we then went into the COVID, so at that stage, gyms and all of the rest were kind of closed down. So in the local community that I am, they set up a Mothers and Others Gaelic football team, which I joined and I've been part of for the last 5 or 6 years now, and I absolutely love it. So it's kind of just getting out with a group of women outdoors once a week. We're all similar age group, and really enjoying each other's company. So whilst it's a little bit about the football, it's more about the social connection and helping each other. So that really works for me. As I said, just being around my family and my children and my husband, and like, as I said, I enjoy nature. I enjoy being on the beach with the dog, and I'm not going to say there's anything one big thing that I do. I try to do something for myself once a month, whether that's like a breathwork class or sound baths or something that I get a bit of joy out of, and to slow me down, because I like to be on the go, and then I like to be given out and wrecked, so I like to slow down every now and then as well, so yeah.
Aileen, thank you so much for coming to Four Swans today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aileen.
That is it for today's episode of Mind Yourself. If something in this conversation has resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it, because these are the conversations that matter. Don't forget to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're enjoying the podcast, a quick rating or review really helps us to reach more people. So until next time, mind yourself.